We're going to go to the International Press Review now. Florence Villeneuve is with me here in the studio. First of all, quite an intriguing tale, International Herald Tribune.
That's right. We're going to start with an article in the International Herald Tribune, which recounts the tale of 4 journalists from the New York Times who were captured while they were covering events in Libya. Now, they recount the time that they were captured. So the journalists are Anthony Shadid, Lindsay Addario, Stephen Farrell, and Tyler Hicks. Now, it's a harrowing tale. They say that while they were covering events in Ajdabiya, they were captured by Gaddafi soldiers. They were beaten, humiliated, accused of being spies, and several times they thought that they were going to die, including one time when they were forced to get on their stomachs with their hands behind their head. And according to the article, they said that they felt the powerlessness of resignation. They said you feel empty when you know it's almost over. Now, they recount so they were captured last Tuesday. They were released this Monday, and they recount how they were taken from place to place. They were blindfolded. They didn't know where they were half the time. And they were also caught up in fighting between Gaddafi soldiers and rebels. And at one point during a lull in fighting, one of the journalists was told, "You have a beautiful head. I'm going to remove it and put it on mine." So you can, the article is full of these accounts of that time they spent. And eventually they were taken to Tripoli and released via Turkish diplomats.
Fascinating to hear their story. On the political front, the NATO debate that we've been talking a lot about today, The Guardian's covering that.
Yes, The Guardian has an article where it talks about divisions within Europe. Now, it starts off with this stereotype that Europeans are from Mars and Americans are from Venus, but it says that even within the European front, they're divided. And it says that on the one hand, there are France and Britain that have led the campaign for the no-fly zone, and then Germany has disassociated it from themselves and is reluctant to get involved. Now, the article really doesn't mince its words when it's talking about Germany. It says, how could Germany not support a UN resolution that was backed by its principal European allies, the United States and the Arab League? It says that Germany has become somewhat of a greater Switzerland. And it says that what the real problem that this means is that it's showing that the Franco-German couple, which has always been this kind of inseparable couple at the heart of Europe, seems to be facing some maybe marital trouble, and that there's an open disagreement now between the foreign ministries. And it says that a divided Europe could increase the likelihood of a divided Libya in the end.
Now, I love the International Press Review for this reason. We can have a look at what some of the papers around the world and in individual countries are looking at in Israel to do with the events there.
Exactly, because of the recent bombing in Jerusalem, there's been several calls from the right to step up some sort, for the Israeli government to step up its defense. And so there's an article in Haaretz is saying there should not be an Operation Cast Lead 2. Let me remind you that the first Operation Cast Lead, which was in 2009, came in a very similar scenario when there were bombings coming from Gaza. And so it's saying that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu must display moderation in a moment when there are bombings coming from Gaza, when there was this bombing in Jerusalem, and that Benjamin Netanyahu should lower the flames instead of being dragged into a new operation in Gaza. It says that, first of all, the first operation didn't actually achieve deterrence, and that this time around, the political scenario in the Middle East is very different. Now, let's also look at an article in the Jerusalem Post, which has a completely different idea. It says that, on the other hand, the deterrence that was established during the first Operation Cast Lead is eroding. And so now's come the time to react with a strong military response. So the Jerusalem Post is calling for decisive leadership from Netanyahu.
Now, mention Portugal briefly. That's in the international papers too.
Exactly. We'll look at an editorial in Diario de Noticias, which is called Humility and Truth. Now, this comes as Jose Socrates has resigned, and it says that now humility and truth, humility because of the trouble today, the financial trouble, is due to serious errors that were made in the past. And truth, because the only way to solve the situation is by addressing it with clear and authentic viewpoint, and that's the only way credibility will be restored.
And finally, Elizabeth Taylor. She's on the
Yes.
front of every newspaper, really, isn't she?
Well, she's been on the front of every newspaper, it seems, in France, and surprisingly, not so many front pages across the world. But in England, she has definitely a place in the hearts of English people.
That's true.
There has been, if we look at the Daily Mail, there's a great photo spread, actually, a very huge article on Elizabeth Taylor that comes back on her career, as well as some of the maybe more salacious parts of her lives, like her 7 husbands. Now, the article by Philip Norman, he actually spent several days with Elizabeth Taylor, and he says that throughout the craziest excesses of her career, she remained always a very down-to-earth woman.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Florence Villeneuve, with her look at the international papers.